I'm so delighted to be here with Mr. Joseph Alessi, who is known to many in this audience as principal trombonist with the New York Philharmonic for many, many years, and known as a fantastic soloist who spreads his talents far and wide in all kinds of musical situations. And we're anticipating a February 26th performance of a new work by William Bolcom, Concerto for Trombone, where you will be our soloist returning to the Dallas Winds. It's a wonderful thing to anticipate. So thank you for being here today.
Thank you, and I'm very excited to return to the Dallas Winds as soloist with this wonderful concerto.
Well, I have several things I'm hoping to ask you, but since we're thinking about the piece, I never know which order of all the things I'm excited about being able to ask. But I understand you were involved in some aspects of the concerto, as would be traditional over time with soloists and composers.
Yes, I have to think back on this, but well, not so much with Bill. It was, he. I don't think he actually consulted with me about much. So and that's not unusual, to be honest. So thinking back on how it all happened, uh, if you look back at towards the beginning of my time at the Philharmonic, there was to celebrate the 150th anniversary of the New York Philharmonic. There was a initiation of a commission that there was a lot of commissions actually commissioned at that point. So at that time, Christopher Rouse was selected, and that was through my wife because she went to University of Michigan, and she had knowledge of Christopher Rouse, and so we talked again later, a couple of years ago, and my wife suggested, why don't you try William Bolcom, and we knew he was uh, maybe not too busy, but you never know with composers. So we did ask, and he said yes, and so that's how it all happened. So it's through this University of Michigan connection through my wife Kathy that this type of these composers were asked. Rouse taught at Michigan, University of Michigan, and so did William Bolcom, I think, when my wife attended school there. So that's how it all happened.
Very good. Well,
Yes.
and I think students sometimes, in the burden of studying music history, forget how personal so much of the writing of music, the performing of music. It's just been a long time ago, but it's always friend and association that's connected to someone else, and then it's a very much a live involvement of people. These things just don't come out on a piece of paper, do they?
No, and I know. I knew of his music, and I've listened to it, and I was always very impressed. And Stanley Drucker, our principal clarinet player, premiered his clarinet concerto, and I'm not sure about. I think there was not a Pulitzer Prize, but there was some particular award. I just woke up not too long ago, so I'm
No,
trying to be awake here.
There was he like you had this amazing so multifaceted career too, which is what's so, for me personally, so marvelous, because you don't just play Mahler. I mean, heavens knows, in the New York Philharmonic years, you played, I guess, just about every piece that exists, would be my guess. But I look at your list of recordings and I see things like Trombonastics and Return to Sorrento, where you have all these beautiful opera arias and cafe songs and a lot of new compositions. And I'll just be honest, when I came up, I didn't know the trombone could do all of that.
Hmm. Well, now you know.
Well,
But the yeah, a lot of people come up to me and say, "I didn't know the trombone could do that type of thing." They don't associate the instrument with singing and expression, but that's what I do. My mother was a singer, and I was very influenced by her voice and her bel canto style of singing. And so anyway, I think I probably picked up on that. But I would say that um, this Bolcom concerto explores a lot of that. And there's some jazz in there, some jazzy stuff. So yeah, if you talk to Bill Bolcom, he's a jazz lover. He'll sit at the piano and he can entertain you all night long with songs, and his wife also is a singer, and they're a duo. And so I've seen them perform together, but they just love getting at the piano and doing all kinds of different types of music. So you can hear that in this concerto. He goes from more serious kind of piece to a lighthearted piece in a matter of minutes. So it's really, he's very versatile, and that's what attracted me to his style of writing, actually.
Well, in terms of the work itself, how do you prepare a piece for a first performance? Or is there anything different than if you were to approach a piece of repertoire that's been around for 100 or 200 years? Do you feel more free or more responsible?
I would say you're a little bit at a disadvantage because your version the piece will be played by many others. That's for sure. So your version is the first interpretation of it. Excuse me, and you can't refer to anybody else's recordings, which I never do anyway. But I don't like to be influenced by any particular way of doing it. I just like it to come out organically. So I would say that yeah, you're a little bit at a disadvantage because you can't you can refer to the score, and you have to figure it out that way. And the other thing that's tough is, yeah, you really have to study the score because of how does your part fit in with the ensemble, and who you're moving with, and etc. So but to prepare for it, it's you know I can learn pieces very quickly, because I'm always learning something very fast, and that's just part of my job. That's what I do. So in the case of Bill's piece, I had it in enough time that I think, well, I'm not to go off on a tangent here, but I'm premiering. Let's see, I'm premiering a great piece of Bruce Broughton. He just composed a piece for trombone and wind ensemble. So next week I'll go out to Las Vegas. In that case, I think I had the piece last summer, not this. I've had a whole year with it. So summer of 18, no, summer of 17, he sent me the music. So, and it's very difficult. So you just chip away at it, and certainly if I don't know it by then I have a problem. So sometimes you get the piece very quickly, and you can spend a lot of time with it. In the case of Bramwell Tovey, he wrote a nice piece for wind ensemble also. That piece I received on the way over to England, and I had to learn it on the plane. So I was studying the piece on the airplane, and it wasn't the whole piece, but he hadn't finished part of the piece, and so the only thing I could do is study it on the plane, because I knew when I got off the airplane I was going to go to rehearsal.
Oh, wow.
And so that was the quickest that I learned something. So, but generally I can learn something pretty fast. It looks daunting when you see all the notes and everything, but you just kind of the way that I practice sometimes is weird too, because I'll just turn to a page, and it could be at the beginning or the middle or the end, and say, okay, I'm going to practice this today, and then I'll turn another page the next day and go to that section. So I'm just kind of uh, randomly going from one place to another, and then that's how I sort of get to learn the piece very fast. Each day learn a different section, and then I just piece it all together, and then within a week, I could be ready to play it.
Oh my.
Yeah.
Is that something? Yeah. Is that something you would recommend for your students as well, or?
No.
Okay.
I think yeah, with students, they have the advantage of having some recording, but uh, um, there a lot of pieces that students play. They're not commissions, they're not brand
Right.
new pieces. They've been around, so that they can actually study recordings and learn it that way. So, but slowly but surely, that's how you really learn quickly, is if you practice very slowly. If there's a passage that is really really tough, you just, hey, I can play this, but let me play it at a tempo that I can play it at first.
Uh, Are there places in this concerto, since we have a lot of students who will be listening to you speak about this piece, are there places that you would want them to heads up, here it comes, or places you particularly enjoyed, or any advice on that beforehand?
Oh, sure. I think the hardest thing about this piece is going from high to low in a matter of, you know 2 seconds or something. So that's the hardest thing to do on any instrument. How to connect high to low or low to high. And so that there's a couple arpeggios and lines that he'll write, and then you have to end up on a low F or something, and it happens very quickly. So that's something that I have to practice a lot, and keep it going. And keeping my skills sharp. So in my warm up, in my warm up and maintenance routine, there's all kinds of exercises that address that.
I've heard you speak through the marvels of technology about the whole issue with brass players, which, again, those who don't play brass instruments might not know this. Your students and brass players do, but how you have to conceive that sound first in your mind. I mean, that's true for all music, I guess, but particularly there's not a big piano there ready to pound out at you. And yet when people look at a trombone, I know one thinks, oh, that's where it's all happening, but that's not the case, is it? It's got to be here. Can you share some of those ideas?
Um, yeah, you really have to have a concept of what it should sound like, for sure. And if I'm thinking about the Balkan Concerto right now, the part that I just described, I know exactly what I want it to sound like. And when you practice, that has to be your guide. You have to have your voice has to be there even before you play. So and that's how you achieve your goal. So with my students, I tell them this exactly the same thing. So you have to really really hear what it if you have no concept of what it sounds like, um, and the way I teach them that is they have to sing themselves. So in the lessons, all my students have to sing, and sing with expression as well, and conduct. So sing, conduct, and do it with expression and like you're interested. Because every once in a while you get somebody who is embarrassed to sing, or when they do sing, it's just dull. Very dull and uninteresting, and frequently that's how it comes out on their own when they play their instrument.
Right.
So anyway, that's something that I'm constantly working on with my students as well.
You Going back from the word sing, one of the things in preparing to speak with you that I so enjoyed was learning about, and you've mentioned her already, your mother, and not just your mother, but your entire family. I found myself thinking, if I were going to write a beautiful novel about musicians, multi-generational, one of these great novels, I might just use your family story, and certainly the focus being on your mother, who just seems extraordinary. And as if I may say, on your website, and I hope I get this right, slidearea.com, is that
Mhm,
correct? There's
mhm.
a section devoted to your mom where you can click and hear her singing. Um, I, I was so delighted to find out about that.
Yeah, that we've on different interviews we've talked about that um, in the past, but I think yeah, she had a great voice, and world class voice. She ended up at the Metropolitan Opera, and because of a competition, she won. And anyway, she didn't stay there long, mainly because she wanted to start a family, and uh, you know she set the record for the most performances as a rookie there when in think 52 or 3, 1952. But she also, her voice, she injured her voice, and unfortunately, so she stopped singing there for a while, and then she met my father, and then they just said, hey, let's get out of town and move to the West Coast, and my father was of course in the orchestra, but um, he had seen the West Coast. They went on tour out there with the Met used to travel by train, and they go all over the country touring, back in those days. And so they did go to the West Coast, and that's where they fell in love with that area and said, I think we should relocate from New York and where it's go to some warm weather and so
Right.
forth. So that's how they ended up out there. But yes, my mother was she would still vocalize all the time, and her intonation was impeccable. And my daughter's a singer too. I think she takes after my mother, and you can actually see a little advertisement for my daughter, Gianna Alessi, Gianna Alessi. I think she has a website, but she just came out with a music video, and you can if there's a lot of resemblances between my daughter and my mother, so it's really quite something in their mannerisms and also their talent. But my daughter has this great intonation, and she just feels the music, naturally. So anyway, I don't mean to brag about my daughter.
No, but that's that story again. And it going as I was reading, I always feel like I'm spying on someone when I read all these things. But there it is, going back to even your grandfather, the involvement in music, great grand, if I got that correct, and
Yeah, yeah,
creating mute somewhat by accident. There's all kinds of stories for people to find out about you,
yes.
your ancestors in music, and now you're the next generation. Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's very hard for an artist like my daughter, because she's very talented, and uh, she has to pay the rent as well. So has a server job at a restaurant in New York City, and but that's kind of perfect for her, because she likes, during the day she can study. Excuse me, she can study, and she plays guitar, and so she can work on her with her band, and then at night she can work. And so this she just quit her job as she had a desk job uh, a while ago, or recently. She just quit anyway, and that was not conducive with her schedule. So now she can really go after her dreams, and I think she really has what it takes. So we'll see.
Well, I think that's very encouraging too, because as you know, the Dallas Winds is deeply involved in supporting music education and supporting what you might call the life-saving possibilities that come with kids who get into band, into orchestra, into choir, and have that life in music that maybe the most beautiful part of their lives, the one thing that is worth getting up for in the morning. That so often happens at that age. If it's not an easy age to be young, and that music keeps kids going, and
Yeah.
then they hear about you have had your own path, your daughter has her path, which none of it's easy, but
No.
it comes together,
Yeah. Well, for a lot of people, music is they don't do it for a living. They'll do it just for their pure enjoyment, and that's wonderful. I think it doesn't have to be a career for everybody. It can be just not a hobby, but yeah, in some ways it is. It's a hobby, and it's something you do for your own enjoyment. And wind bands around the world. There's a lot of people who do it. They're like, for instance, the brass bands in England. Um, they are unbelievable brass bands, but none of them are professional musicians. So I've soloed with a couple of those bands over there, and it's scary how well they play. and the community bands in Japan. You know, if you go to hear a community band in Japan, it's a world class ensemble. You know, and not all of them are musicians, or they might be teachers or conductors on the side. Some of them are not, you know, in music at all as a career, but you know, it's a real and enjoyable thing in their lives.
Yeah, the passion that never quite extinguishes. And
Yeah.
well, I know one thing, that this concerto is going to be. I mean, it's gorgeous. It's fun. It's a little challenging in moments, but then there's so much life, so much uh, sort of, I guess you could say, swing. You know, and that second movement of the blues. It's just, it goes through almost every emotion that I could think of in that one piece, and all through the instrument that you love, the trombone. I hope people are able to be there. I hope they'll be able to hear the recordings. Are you going to be recording this piece soon, or do you have any thoughts?
Yes, I just did. It was
Ah,
just,
there you go. See, I'm out.
well, it was released with the University of Michigan Wind Band with Michael Heathcock conducting, and so I think that just came out. I probably have a.
We'll find it.
Yeah, I have the disc close by here. Wait, hold on. I think it's
All
right.
right. Oh, let's see it. There we go. Just happens to be there, right?
Right, it's right behind me. So there it
Oh,
is.
look at that. Okay. Well, if it can't be the Dallas Winds, that's the next best thing, is it?
Yeah, yeah. And actually, the New York Philharmonic version, you know, the uh, that's where the real premiere happened several years ago. But that's going to be released in a month or two.
Uh-huh.
So yeah. And um, anyway, I'm really excited to do with Dallas Wins, and I also want to thank the person who actually put this all together. Is his name is Ed Stanford. Now, Ed is amateur trombone player. He doesn't do it for a living, but he lives the town just south of me here, and we're he's a good friend, and he commissioned the whole project. So I want to thank Ed, and hopefully he'll be coming to the concert. I should call him and see if he's
Yeah.
planning on coming to Dallas. So I'll see. Matter of fact, I'm going to call him right after this interview and make
Good.
sure he knows it. Make sure he knows about it.
Well, I'll hope we'll try to arrange perfect weather for you, okay? And have everything go when you get there, and hopefully he could be part of the audience as well.
Yeah, yeah,
Good. Don't forget,
he,
write that down.
yeah, yeah. He shows up sometimes to performances in other cities. So we'll see. And it'd be great if Jerry could meet him and the whole band. It would be great.
Well, it sounds like a good party. It always is at the Dallas Winds, and I just want to thank you for letting us come right into your early morning. I know you have a little bit of music you make at nights there with your
Yeah.
concert schedule.
Yes. Yeah. I was. It's a beautiful day here in New York, and so I'm going to go out for a run, and that's part of my mantra is to go out and get some exercise every day, and so I do a 3 mile run. That's part of my, hopefully in Dallas I'll be able to do that and get out and run. I've ran around Dallas, downtown Dallas, and it's nice, very
Great.
nice.
Great. Well, maybe someone will be walking by and see you, and say,
Yeah, well, you
"Hey,
never know.
that's going to be the welcome tonight." That'll be
Yeah,
great. Well, thank
yeah,
you very much for your time, and we look forward to having you back in Dallas and hearing this concerto.
yeah. Well, thanks for doing this, Carol, and I'm looking forward to seeing you there, and it won't be long now. I think,
No.
yeah. So I'm on this trip. Yeah, my first stop is in Las Vegas to do to rehearse the new Bruce Broughton concerto, and then I come and see you all
Mhm.
for to work there, and then I go back to Las Vegas to perform the piece,
Wow.
and then I go back to Texas, to Austin, Texas, to work with Maestro Stefan Sanders and the Round Rock Symphony, I believe it's called.
Yes.
Yeah, so we're going to collaborate. So it's kind of a long trip, but it'll be fun.
Good. Oh, that is, well, I think from listening to all you said. Anyone who thinks that the life of a musician is locked up somewhere in a practice room, that could not be further from the case, right?
Yeah. Oh no. If you really want to be a musician and a soloist, especially, you have to be willing to travel. And I've met other musicians in airports. Somebody will have a trombone case, or and you recognize somebody, and that's what musicians do. They travel at all hours of the day to get where they need to go, and any country as well. So I think I was in Macedonia, and I was recently, and I was on the plane. There was a group from San Francisco, and they were going from Macedonia to, I don't know, Chicago or something, for their next gig. So yeah, you got to be willing to go all over the world.
Oh, and you certainly do. And you bring a lot of it to us through your recordings. So, again, we wish you the best in the days that remain, and we
Yeah.
will see you very, very soon.
Okay. Have a great day.
We're going to, and you as well. And don't forget to call your colleague.
Oh yeah, I'll do that right now. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for sharing your time with us.
Yeah. Thanks, Carol. Bye bye.